381 Navy SEALs surrounded, out of ammo. Minutes from annihilation, a frozen Afghan valley. Black night sky. The kind of cold that slices through body armor and bone. Enemy fighters crawl across every ridge, rifles cracking in the dark. Tracer rounds stitch the air like burning needles. Each shot chews away the last pockets of cover, forcing the men lower into the rock. Above them, silence. No jets, no gunships. Command has locked the airspace tight. Political cables argue borders, while men bleed into the dust. A sandstorm races from the west, 40 minutes from slamming the valley shut and ending any chance of rescue. When it hits, no aircraft will fly for 12 deadly hours. Down in the kill box, the SEAL teams count their last magazines, some with barely 4 rounds left. Their JTAC whispers updates over a static-filled radio, voice tight, almost breaking. "Ammo black in 30, he says. The reply from higher command is chilling in its emptiness, but high above the mountains, at the very edge of the no-fly zone, an A-10 Warthog prowls low and slow. Twin engines rumble against the thin air. Inside the cockpit, a young pilot watches the valley through infrared, listening to the same desperate ground calls and the same deadly silence from command. Her name is Captain Aar Vaughn, call sign Thunderbolt 7. She carries the GAU-8 Avenger cannon, a 7-barrel monster capable of shredding armored columns in seconds. One strafing run could open a lifeline for the trapped SEALs, but orders are orders. To cross that invisible line is to break the chain of command, risk court-martial, and spark an international firestorm. The storm edge glows faintly on her radar. Fuel gauges tick down. Voices on the ground grow more frantic. Somewhere deep inside the cockpit, a single thought burns louder than every warning alarm. One trigger pull could save hundreds. One decision could end her career. The clock is running. Who breaks first? Command or the pilot? Captain Aar Vaughn was never supposed to be ordinary. Call sign Thunderbolt 7, she wore the A-10 patch like a second skin. At 29, she was already a flight lead at Bagram Air Base, a role earned through thousands of flight hours, brutal training sorties, and a reputation for precision that left older pilots grudgingly impressed. Her story began far from combat. Vaughn grew up on a wheat farm outside Kearney, Nebraska, where summer skies stretched so wide they felt like an invitation. While other kids chased footballs, she chased contrails. Her earliest memory was standing on the roof of her father's barn, staring at a passing A-10 during a county air show. The squat, ugly jet didn't glide, it hunted. Something about that stubborn design, built to survive punishment and keep fighting, rooted itself deep inside her. By high school, she was flying crop-dusting trainers before most classmates had driver's licenses. Long hours on the farm had hardened her hands and sharpened her instincts. Mechanical skills came naturally. She could rebuild a tractor carburetor before she could parallel park. That grit carried her through the Air Force Academy, where she outflew nearly every cadet in her class. Instructors described her as unflinching under pressure, though they often added a quieter note, doesn't always color inside the lines. Vaughn wore that reputation like a shield. She followed procedures to the letter when lives depended on it, but pointless bureaucracy that she met with a raised eyebrow and a half-smile. Pilots trusted her because she questioned what deserved questioning and never what didn't. Her first solo combat mission proved the point. Over eastern Syria, an Allied convoy ambushed in a canyon called for immediate close air support. Weather was dropping to minimums. AWACS advised holding until conditions improved. Vaughn double-checked her instruments, calculated crosswinds, and slipped under the cloud deck with calm precision. Her strafing run shattered the ambush and saved 24 soldiers. She returned to base with fuel fumes and a quiet debrief. Next time, wait for clearance. Vaughn's only reply was a polite nod. That quiet calculation was on display again tonight. At Bagram, she sat in the dim glow of the ready room, helmet on the table, radios hissing with encrypted chatter. Official channels were clogged with political arguments and weather warnings. But beneath the static, she heard something else. Short, clipped ground transmissions from a JTAC deep in the Hindu Kush. ammo counts. Casualty updates. The rhythm of men running out of time. She traced the coordinates on her kneeboard, pencil tapping a steady beat. Every new call tightened the same knot she'd felt in Syria, a silent plea for someone willing to act before it was too late. Vaughn checked her watch. The sandstorm was 39 minutes out. Command still held the airspace closed. Her engines were fueled. Her warthog was armed. All she needed was a reason to break the silence. The valley was a natural coffin, granite walls so steep even moonlight struggled to escape. Then mountain air stole helicopter lift and turned every exhale into a ghostly cloud. Down below, the SEAL teams shifted behind shards of rock, each movement slower than the last. Frost edged their rifle stocks. Breath rasped through cracked lips. Radio chatter cut through the darkness in broken bursts. Team Delta black on 5, 2 mags left. Echo element, 1 KIA, 2 wounded. No medevac possible. Copy, hold position. Ammo check every 5. The JTAC's voice carried the weight of impossible math. Casualties rising. Ammunition bleeding away. No corridor for extraction. Every call tightened the noose. At Bagram, the command center flickered with satellite feeds and blinking threat grids. Officers leaned over consoles, eyes darting between radar sweeps and diplomatic cables. The kill zone straddled a sensitive border. One wrong move, and the firefight could ignite a regional firestorm. Higher headquarters repeated the same cold directive. Airspace remains locked. No exceptions. A captain at the operations desk muttered under his breath, "We're watching a massacre in slow motion." No one answered. Rules of engagement allowed no emotion. Weather radar added its own cruel countdown. A sandstorm barreled in from the west. A wall of grit tall enough to ground every aircraft for 12 hours. Visibility already dropping. 7 miles, 5, 4. In 40 minutes, the valley would disappear beneath a choking orange haze. After that, no eyes, no birds, no hope. Inside her cockpit, Captain Aar Vaughn listened to the same transmissions through a private feed she wasn't supposed to monitor. Each clipped update sharpened the pressure behind her ribs. Ammo black in 20, multiple wounded. Request immediate air support. Her thumb hovered near the transmit key. Orders were clear. Hold. Remain outside restricted airspace. Wait for diplomatic clearance. She forced a slow breath, eyes scanning instruments glowing in cool green. Altitude steady. Fuel optimal. Weapons hot. Her kneeboard lay open across her thigh. In pencil, she sketched the valley's outline from memory, marking SEAL positions with tiny dots. Wind speed. Gun run angles, escape headings, calculations stacked silently in her mind. A checklist she wasn't supposed to make. Every sensor ping reminded her that action meant treason, and inaction meant 381 dead Americans. Outside the canopy, the Hindu Kush stretched endless and indifferent. Stars burned cold above the mountains, uncaring of politics or orders. Vaughn tightened her grip on the control stick, feeling the vibration of engines eager to dive. The storm front crept closer on her radar, a spreading bruise of amber and red. 37 minutes to 0 visibility. Command repeated, "All flights hold current position, no entry." Repeat, "No entry." Vaughn's pencil tapped once against the kneeboard, a silent metronome of decision. Captain Aar Vaughn's thumb settled on the mic switch. The decision felt electric, irreversible. Thunderbolt 7 checking in. "Danger close request, grid Kilo 34. Her voice was crisp, professional, and 100% unauthorized. The reply came fast, sharp, and cold. "Negative Thunderbolt 7, hold position. No clearance, a wax control." The gatekeepers of the sky. Vaughn's jaw tightened. She flicked to guard frequency, the emergency channel every pilot could hear. "Any station, this is Thunderbolt 7. I have eyes on U.S. forces in contact. Request immediate IR mark for danger close engagement. Static." Then a ragged voice, thin with exhaustion. "Thunderbolt, this is Trident Actual. God, you're really here. IR strobe on my smoke. Marking now." A faint wink of infrared bloomed on her sensor. Vaughn banked hard left, lining up her first run. Altitude 6,200 feet, speed 310 knots, gun arm light, green, master arm on. The GAU-8 Avenger cannon sat in the nose like a coiled predator. 7 barrels primed to spit 13-depleted uranium at 900 rounds per minute. Vaughn eased the Pipper over the hostile ridge, breathing with the aircraft. Trident, confirm friendlies inside 100 meters. Confirmed. We're about to be overrun. Send it, copy. Guns, guns, guns. The Warthog bucked as the cannon roared, a metallic growl that rattled her seat. Tracer lines ripped across the valley like molten lightning. Enemy muzzle flashes winked out in a chain of sudden darkness. Smoke billowed upward, glowing in the moonlight. Rounds on target. They're just 30 meters west. Repeat west. The JTAC's voice crackled, calm despite the chaos. Vaughn rolled into a steep climb, pulling 5 Gs. Sweat pooled beneath her gloves. She glanced at fuel. Good. Ammunition, full drum -1 burst. Plenty left for hell. Copy, 30 west. Second run inbound. She dropped back into the bowl, terrain rushing toward her canopy. Mountain ridges blurred to black streaks. The targeting reticle floated steady, despite the turbulence. Guns. Guns, another roar, deeper this time. The sound didn't just echo. It lived inside the rocks, bouncing through the valley like thunder from the Earth's core. Enemy fighters scattered, some vanishing beneath collapsing ledges. Solid hits, Trident Actual called. North slope still hot. RPG team moving to high ground, visual. Third run. Vaughn snapped the Warthog into a knife-edge turn, wings vertical against the stars. The valley floor spun sideways in her canopy. She leveled, lined up the new threat and tapped the trigger in half-second bursts. Short, surgical, a bright bloom of sparks. Then silence. No return fire. Thunderbolt 7, the JTAC breathed. You just bought us breathing room. Above, AWACS barked through the command net. Thunderbolt 7, you are in restricted airspace. Disengage immediately. Vaughn ignored the order. Trident Actual, she said instead, voice steady. Mark next target. We're not done yet. The valley lay scarred and smoking, ridgelines glowing faintly from scattered fires. Captain Aar Vaughn steadied her Warthog for one last run. Thunderbolt 7, final pass. Keep that corridor open. She dropped into the bowl, throttling back to stay low and slow, hugging the granite walls. Her HUD flickered with the dance of infrared strobes, marking friendly positions. Beyond them, a thin slash of open ground, just wide enough for a rotor insertion. Trident Actual corridor is hot. Keep your heads down. Copy, Thunderbolt. Your nukes inbound. The JU-8 thundered again, shredding the last enemy stronghold along the escape route. Dust and stone erupted in a rolling wave. Vaughn climbed hard, banking to provide top cover as the night shook with rotor thunder. 2 CH-47 Chinooks appeared over the ridgeline, their twin rotors slicing the cold mountain air. They skimmed the peaks like shadows, nose lights off, engines straining in the thin atmosphere. Vaughn's eyes tracked them through her visor, watching for muzzle flashes, ready to cut loose if even one tracer appeared. On the ground, the SEALs moved in tight formations, silhouettes darting through drifting smoke toward the waiting ramps. Radio chatter snapped across Vaughn's headset, ammo counts, casualty checks, breathing fast but controlled. Trident Actual, all elements exfil complete. Repeat, all elements clear. The call landed like a punch of relief. A new alarm screamed across Vaughn's console, fuel low. She stole a glance at the gauge. Barely enough for the return to Bagram. One more pass and she'd be gliding. Copy Trident, she said, forcing calm. Thunderbolt exiting airspace. She rolled the Warthog east, engines rumbling in the thin air. The Chinooks faded behind her, shrinking to specks of black against the rising dust of the incoming sandstorm. Thunderbolt 7. This is AWACS control. The voice cracked through the static, suddenly sharp, suddenly urgent. Command acknowledges your assistance. Return to base for debrief. Immediately, Vaughn's lips curved into the smallest private smile. Now they called. Too late to stop anything. Too late to rewrite the night. She keyed the mic once more. Copy, AWACS, Thunderbolt 7 RTB. The Warthog's nose dipped toward the faint glow of Bagram Airfield far to the south. Fuel warning blared again, insistent and angry. Vaughn ignored it, riding the edge of the envelope, the engine's hum a steady heartbeat against the memory of gunfire. Behind her, the valley fell silent, except for the retreating chop of rotors. 381 Navy SEALs were alive because one pilot chose duty over orders. The sandstorm swallowed the battlefield. The record would show only an unauthorized sortie, a reprimand to be drafted at dawn. But in the black sky over the Hindu Kush, Captain Aar Vaughn had already written the truth, in smoke, fire, and the roar of the gay 8. The briefing room at Bagram was cold and bare, its fluorescent lights buzzing like angry insects. Captain Aar Vaughn sat alone at the end of a long metal table, flight suit still streaked with dust, helmet resting beside a logbook that was still warm from the sortie. Her knuckles were white against the pages. Across from her, a panel of senior officers filed in. Colonels, a one-star general, 2 JAG lawyers with stacks of regulation binders. Their faces were granite. "Captain Vaughn," the general began, voice clipped. "You knowingly violated a direct order to hold position outside the engagement zone. Do you have anything to add before we proceed with disciplinary review?" Ilara met his eyes, steady and unflinching. "No, sir," she said. "Except that 381 Americans are alive tonight." A silence settled across the room. Paper shifted. A lawyer cleared his throat but said nothing. The questioning continued. Fuel calculations, altitude logs, comms transcripts, but the weight of the numbers crushed every argument. 381 lives saved. 0 civilian casualties. Every tactical choice accounted for. Every round on target. Hours later, the general closed the folder and leaned back. "Officially," he said, "you will receive a formal reprimand for disobeying airspace restrictions." He paused, voice softening almost imperceptibly. "Unofficially, you carried out one of the most precise, close air support missions we've ever recorded." "Dismissed, Captain." Outside, the Afghan dawn crept over the mountains in thin silver light. Vaughn stepped into the chill, helmet under her arm, the reprimand already feeling like a distant echo. No medals, no press conference, just the quiet satisfaction of lives preserved. Weeks later, policy memos circulated through the chain of command. The Bagram incident, sanitized of names, triggered a revision to close air support protocol. A-10 pilots were granted greater discretion to enter mountain valleys when ground forces faced imminent annihilation. Her flight, officially unauthorized, had changed the rulebook for every pilot who would follow. The SEAL teams never forgot. A handwritten note arrived in her squadron mailbox months later. No signatures, just a single line. "Because of you, we all went home." For Aar Vaughn, that was enough. Courage, she knew, was never measured in ribbons or headlines. It was measured in the breath of soldiers who lived to see another sunrise, in the families that would never know how close they came to a folded flag. Before we close, a salute to every service member who stands the watch, who makes the impossible call when the clock runs out. Share your thoughts below. Tell us where you're watching from, and honor those who fly, fight, and return so others can live. Because sometimes the bravest flight is the one flown against orders.